everyone, and welcome to the very first video of my very first channel. My name is Renee, and we are going to do some painting together. I wanted to show the process from start to finish of making a painting that I do. I paint in acrylics, and I have only been doing it for about 2 years now, so I mean, I'm getting pretty good. And people wanted to see it, but I'm obviously not, I don't know everything yet. So you'll kind of see me doing my thing, making mistakes, and learning as I go. I do all of those things in this very first painting that I did of Peter Monn and his husband Alex. So this is the intro for that. I'm going to show you the process of sketching, applying gesso to prep the painting, as well as various steps of the painting. Now, because this is my first video, I'm trying to get the hang of what camera to use, what camera angle to use. So you will see a variety of different angles in this video, so please bear with me. If I start doing this more, I will invest in some good equipment and make my videos really awesome. But the steps are there, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so first things first, we're going to take our canvas and prime it, get it ready with some gesso. I like this one because you can dip it in there and it's a little easier. You want to just spread it evenly over the canvas. This is size 16 by 20. It's a canvas size I like to use a lot. It's doing portraits, you can get a lot of details on a size that big. And I'm going to probably do 2 people on this one, or a person and a pet. I haven't quite decided yet. But so basically all you do is go ahead and apply this evenly everywhere. I try not to have too many brush strokes, but it doesn't super matter because at the end when it's dry, you're going to sand it so that it's really smooth. And it's much easier to sketch on and easier to paint on too. We'll put on a second coat and then sand it, and then actually start the painting process. Okay, now off camera I have gone ahead and put another coat on this canvas here and sanded it with just normal sandpaper. This is a fine one, I think. Sand it down until it's nice and smooth, and then just wipe it off with like a towel or microfiber cloth to get all the dust and residue off of there. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to sketch what I want to draw onto this canvas, and I am going to have the help of this projector. This projector is one that my husband got me for Christmas. It's about $120 for this one. It's pretty simple. It just hooks up to your laptop, and you turn it on, it projects the image. I will show all that in a second. I just wanted to quickly talk about the problem some people have with using a projector. Some of maybe the purists in the art world want to say that it's cheating in some way, but really, it requires a lot of skill to, one, set this up and get the right composition. It still requires a lot of skill to go in and make sure everything is correct, because it can become a little skewed if you don't project it in just the right way. And of course, there is tons of skill involved in still mixing your paint and applying your paint to make it look like your person or subject, whatever you are painting. So if you, want to try this, don't feel any qualms about using the projector. Don't feel like you're cheating because, however you need to get it done. They say that the masters many years ago were using camera obscura to figure out how to paint the rooms around them or the subjects around them, the landscapes. They noticed the pictures were coming in, upside down. When the sun was coming in through a small hole, they figured that all out and they used it to their advantage. So this is just another weapon in the arsenal. So no harm in using it. And I will show you how exactly I use it in just a second. Okay, real quick. So here's the setup. I have my mirror projector hooked up and plugged in because a lot of times it likes to lose power the moment I'm using it. And I've got my canvas on the wall here because I have actually put 3 nails in the wall, made sure it was level, and that was just the easiest way I found for me to not have it too high off the ground, not have it tilted at all like if it was on an easel, so that I can make sure to not warp the image at all when I am projecting it. So I'm going to have to turn the light off to actually do the projection, so I will show you that in just a second. Alright, and here you can see I am getting the basic outline right onto the canvas using my projector. I'm just going for basic shapes right now and not so much fine details. I just want to get a good idea where everything is and get the layout correct. And then I will go in afterwards and actually compare it to the photo on the iPad and get all those details in there so that I don't have to do it later, which I have run into in the past. You know, all of a sudden I'm painting along and I realize that maybe I didn't quite sketch it right in this step, so it's definitely important to look at it after you do this step with a projector and make sure everything is exactly how it needs to be before you add that paint, because it is much easier to erase pencil on a canvas than it is to go over something and fix it with a paint. Additionally, I am using a watercolor pencil to do this sketch, and I definitely recommend a watercolor pencil versus a graphite pencil. The graphite pencil will definitely smudge a lot more once paint goes over it, and the watercolor pencil is a lot better on that. The part here that I didn't show you guys was just setting it up. It's kind of some trial and error, getting it just the right height, just the right distance away from the canvas to get the right size of the image. So that's just a trial and error that you would have to find on your own. It wasn't very interesting as far as watching. Okay, so before I start actually filming the painting, I wanted to, with my phone, film and show you a couple things about the setup here. So as you can tell, I've gone in last night without filming and just refined the drawing a little bit. I just had it sitting on my lap on the bed and had the tablet next to me and made sure that the eyes were good, because definitely, you know, it's hard to see sometimes when you're just doing a little quick sketch. So now there's a lot more detail to go by, and I've got my setup here. So I mean, I just always use these solo cups to put my stuff in. You always have to have some water nearby. I like to use empty little plastic containers to put my paint in. I have a water bottle to mist. We'll mist the back of this canvas in a second, and when you mist the back, it just makes it wetter, obviously, so that you can blend a little easier, because acrylics dry out very, very fast. I have the iPad sitting here with the photo we're going to do. I did up the contrast and sharpen it a bit so it's easier to see. And another nice thing to have when I start doing the skin color is I have just an old little pencil box and a piece of plastic. It used to be a lid to a plastic container like this, but I cut it down to fit in a wet sponge. And so if you put your paint in here, it will not dry out on you super fast, because a lot of times maybe I want to I took so long to, you know, to blend the perfect skin complexion color, and I'm not going to be able to duplicate it again perfectly, so I keep it in here to make sure it's there in case I need to go back and do any touch-ups, or in case I don't finish his whole face in one sitting, you know. So that's the setup, and now we're going to get into it. Okay, now we are going to start. I'm going to start. I'm just going to make the background a nice green color because there's some grass behind him, and I'm just going to extend that through the whole thing. Green always looks good behind people's skin, just does. We're using some sap green, and I'm going to add a little white to it. Always titanium white. I have a couple whites because I go through white really quickly, especially with all the skin colors I do and all the black and whites that I do. Alright. So you want kind of a big brush to do the background so that there's not a lot of brush strokes. Though I do like kind of a messier background, like, I mean, as far as visible brush strokes. I kind of like how that looks. And I also like to have a couple different shades of whatever I'm doing for my background so that I could almost make a little of a vignette around it. So that it's darker on the edges. In case we don't know what that means. Alright. That's a nice pastel-y green. I'm going to add a little more green to kind of darken up this part of it. Painting is a lot of trial and error, really. I mean, you kind of always know roundabout what you want to do, but you still have to just try and be like, oh, well, that paint color isn't quite what I wanted. Let me add a little of this. Let me add a little of that, you know. I always do the backwards. I always do the background first, because, you know, then I'm not doing it at the end and going over a skin that I've done or an ear that I've done. So I always put it in very first and foremost. I saw one tutorial where they did it in the reverse order of that. They did the background last so that they could make nice crisp lines around it, but I don't know. I don't trust myself to do that, I guess. I would mess it up. Alright, so I would probably normally stand, but I don't really want to block what I'm doing here, so. And I always paint the edges and the top too. And I love these brushes. These are just craft smart, and they're just like the best ones, I think. I love the angle ones. So let's take it all the way down. An angle brush like this is very helpful for not going over the line that you want to go on. You see what I mean by leaving the visible brush strokes? I kind of like that little effect that it does. I kind of started doing this effect for backgrounds really because it's hard not to get this halo effect around what the subject in the center when you do this. So, well, definitely. See, that is why I would be worried about what would be happening if I did the background last, you know? So, anyway, it's hard to not get this halo effect around your subject, and making sure there's a little movement and texture and brush strokes throughout the whole thing kind of camouflages that, so it's not just like dark, 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 and a little halo around here looking funny. For hair, you kind of want to go in a little bit because you don't want to realize that there's some wispies that would need to, you know, go over the background, and you haven't gone close enough to the hair, and then you can't really go in with the background anymore and put it into the hair to go behind hair. It looks funny, if that makes sense. So go a little bit in too much to make sure that you can feather the hair out later over the background.
And here you'll see I have started speeding up the process of painting the background, as it's not, the most interesting thing in the world. I'm just going ahead and finishing up getting around all of their arms, around Alex's hair, and making sure I get all the sides nice and colored in. It's definitely a good idea to color or to paint on the sides and the top of the canvas so that it has a nice cohesive look all the way around. Okay guys, before I start painting today, I wanted to just talk quick about my setup.
So I'm going to be painting Peter's face today, and so I've got a variety of skin tones out. Normally my go-to is to start for a Caucasian person is a raw sienna and then light portrait pink. I like to mix those two together with some white and get kind of my base. I just keep mixing and getting lighter as needed until it's the right shade. And then I will probably go in and add some burnt sienna to have the redness in the face. I know Peter has kind of a ruddiness to his complexion, and he might even need some magenta popped in for around the nose area and the cheeks. And after I make that base for his overall, like the mid-tones for his complexion, I'll just take some more of the titanium white and make a lighter version of that. A couple shades, actually, the very lightest for the nice highlights in there, and then a midway between the like base and then that super bright highlight. And then I will also take the raw umber and mix it in to that base and give us a nice place for shadows. You don't really want to put any just straight up black in any of these colors to make them darker. It will just look too dark and muddy and not like natural skin tone. You want to use some kind of brown like the raw umber. The only blacks that you would that you should use on a face are in the nostrils, in the pupils, and inside the mouth. If the mouth is open and you get black back in there. Other than that, you should just use some kind of dark brown.
And here I am now starting Peter's face. I am using the two colors I spoke of earlier. The raw sienna and light portrait pink are the main two things that I mix together, also with titanium white until I achieve the right shade that I'm looking for. I do, you'll see in this, mainly just focus on his forehead and his nose and his cheeks. I added a little bit of magenta also to get the color in his cheeks, as well as some burnt sienna in the shadows there on his temples and in his forehead. I'm basically just filling in, kind of like you were just coloring in a coloring book at this point. Just trying to fill in as much as I can. I like to go back and forth between the midtones and the shadows and the highlights all at once, all while it's still wet and easily blendable, because in just a few minutes, acrylics will start to dry and they become much harder to blend and harder to work with. So I get them all laid down in one area as quickly as I can, and then I go ahead and use a big soft round brush, and you can use that brush, and I do show it later on, to go ahead and kind of buff out any of your brush strokes and give it a nice airbrushed look. It really has a nice effect that makes it seem more like you're painting with oils versus acrylics. little bit more of Peter's skin off camera because it was just kind of more of the same. But I do want to just point out a couple things that I did. So he might look a little funny right now because he's got this thing, but that's because you can't really see it on the other side the way he's turned and the way the light is. There will be beard all over here. It looks like he's drooling right now. And I went ahead and did his arms and his chest and his ear. Everything is in the same family that I talked about earlier with the portrait pink and the raw sienna color mixed together, and then with some white. He was looking a little orange, but I managed to tame that down. I also mixed some magenta in there because he had some pink going on his arms and right there and on his cheeks, and then especially his ear. Well, we all have that red area of the ear. And then his lips are mostly just the base color, very white, mixed with the portrait pink and a little bit of the magenta and the raw sienna right here. I'm sorry, raw umber right here. I also gave him a few lines, a few shadows around his eyes. So he looks a little tired right now, but once everything is done, I may have to lighten them up. Once his eyes and eyebrows are in, that won't seem so odd. And I wanted to talk about this nice big fluffy brush here. That is going to be your friend whenever you have a big area like in his face or like down here in his arm. When you start just using a regular brush, a regular flat brush or angle brush, you can get marks. And it's after you get everything nice and saturated and covered in your paint, you can take this and just kind of buff it around. And sometimes it will take the paint off a little bit, so you can go in again after, but it does get rid of any unsightly brush strokes and makes it nice and smooth like skin like you want. That really only works for any big opening, as it's a big fluffy brush. So that's what we have going on right now. I didn't want to start his eyes or anything else without filming, but that's what I will plan on doing tomorrow. Finishing up Peter's face, and then probably move to his hair, and then we will start with mixing a completely different skin color for Alex because he is a bit more brown than Peter. Here I am starting Peter's eyes. When you do someone's eyes, you don't want to make the whites of their eyes just completely white. You want to take a tiny bit of blue and mix it in there just to have it more realistic looking. You can't really tell, but it just has that more realistic quality to it than if someone had super bright whites of their eyes. So anyway, also I am using cerulean blue for the main color of Peter's eyes. And I also have some Payne's Gray mixed in there. Payne's Gray is a nice color. It almost just looks black in the tube, but it is a like very, very dark cadet blue or a bluish gray. So when you lighten it a little bit, you can definitely see the blue undertones in it, and it's really nice. That's what I'm using around the corner or around the perimeter of his eyes right now, as well as going in and adding little details. I kind of go back and forth with the eyes, adding little darker notes and then lighter notes, kind of back and forth until you get the perfect like quality that you're looking for, the perfect pattern that you're looking for. It's just a kind of a trial and error process. Sometimes you have to put some more light color on and put some more dark color on right after that, back and forth until you get it just right. Here I am starting Peter's eyebrows. I'm using a flat brush and using just the side of it so I get nice sharp lines. And I am using a raw umber, which is a nice really dark brown with some cool undertones to it. And I mixed it with a little bit of black to make it even darker. And for any kind of hair, you just want to follow the natural line that the hair would go, the way that they would lay. As you can see, I'm not just filling it in kind of like I did maybe with the face. I'm actually trying to replicate the way the hair strands would actually lay. I'll do that for all of the hair that you'll see on here, the eyebrows, the beards, and the hair on the head. And speaking of hair, now you can see I'm starting Peter's hair. I love doing hair. It's one of my favorite things to paint. So right now I'm doing the underpainting, which is just laying in the darkest parts of the hair that you usually see near the roots. And Peter has salt and pepper hair, so even though a lot of it is gray and a lot of it's white now, there are still some dark spots that you will see. And that's what I'm laying in right now. And again, I'm keeping with the right direction that the hair naturally grows so that it looks natural when we're all done, after I layer many more different colors on top of this first one. Okay, and here I have switched over to doing Peter's shirt because I wanted to go ahead and let his hair dry, because I am not looking to blend this time. I want to have that lots of different colors going on, and so that you can see all the different strands. So I decided to switch over and go ahead and block in all the colors for his shirt. And this color for his shirt is hard to pronounce. I had to look it up. It is called phthalocyanine, if I believe I'm saying it right. Phthalocyanine blue. It's a mouthful. Anyway, so I'm just going in and putting in like the base foundation for his shirt. I'm going to go in and add all the highlights and shadows to that later on. And just like that, we're back to Peter's hair again. Now basically the only colors I'm using for Peter's hair are black and white in varying different shades. Obviously I went from the darkest to and then I mixed a little more white and a little more white, and I just keep adding on and adding in all the details. As you can see, as I get lighter, I am also adding finer pieces of hair to it and taking my time a little bit more than when I was just blocking in the underpainting for his hair. Hair really is a lot of fun to do. You just do it as if you're combing your hair. You use the brush in the same manner. You're making little wisps, you're making little strands of hair with your brush, and you just have to follow the natural flow and it should come out very nice. that awesome music, guys, huh? You like that? You like my little in-between music selections? I got those free from the audio library on YouTube. That one was called Potato Deal. Yeah. Anyway, as you can see here, I have started Alex's skin tone. I'm not going to actually show you very much of this one. I'm going to show you here a couple, seconds of it. But I ended up having to redo pretty much the entire thing. And I did it off camera because I was getting pretty frustrated, honestly. I ended up just not mixing it very well. The color didn't come out very well. And I pretty much had to do it all over again. So I will show you that in a second when you see the results that come out a little better after I tried 2 or 3 times to get it done. Okay guys, so unfortunately I did do some painting off camera, and that is because I really messed up Alex's skin tone, and I end up reaching out to other artists on a Facebook painting page, and they gave me some ideas of some better colors to use to mix. And so I went ahead and did that. They told me, and what I ended up using instead was raw sienna, mostly for his base, and I mixed it with a yellow ochre, and then mixed it with white, and then to do the shading and the shadows, I did burnt sienna. And that worked pretty good, though it ended up still being a little too dark, and I went over it all again with just the lighter shade I used for highlights, and then I had to whiten my original highlight shade even more to do it again. So, and I did his glasses off camera because I really had to put it in my lap and keep turning it around to try and do it. It's pretty nerve-wracking to try and do black glasses on someone's face, especially when you spent so much time doing that face. So going forward, I am going to go ahead and film myself doing the rest. We have to do Peter's beard, the highlights and definition and dimension in Alex's hair. I still have to tweak his glasses a little. There's missing some like light gray reflection on the edge here. Also his teeth, obviously, and his shirt. And Peter's shirt still needs to have some highlights and shadows in it too to make it pop. So we still have a ways to go. I'm a little less frustrated now. I think I've got Alex not looking like just someone who walked around and smeared mud on his face and let it dry. He actually looks like he has a nice, healthy, tan complexion now. So I just wanted to give you an update and say sorry I didn't film the whole thing, but I am going to continue. All right. And here I am trying again to get Alex's skin just right. After talking with a friend about it, it was pointed out to me that though his skin looked better and overall lighter, I now kind of had 2 light sources going on, so I needed to up the highlights on this side of the face where the sun is hitting it. You see how it's hitting Peter's face on that same side, so it has to match. And it still was a lot of back and forth for me. I think you can even see me be kind of annoyed on the video here, but I eventually got it done. now, yay, I'm finally done with Alex's skin. It finally looks how I want it to look, and I get to make him look a little more complete, a little more finished, and add all his facial hair on here. I'm doing it just kind of really slowly, really taking my time, using a very small liner brush and using just black mixed with a little bit of the burnt sienna, just so it's not super duper black, that has a little more dimension from the brown in there, and just going in there and placing all those hairs where they should be. When you're using a small liner brush like that, you kind of have to go back more often for paint, obviously, because it's not gonna be applied very smoothly if there's not a lot of paint on your brush. So it's kind of back and forth a lot. As you can see me dipping into that paint quite a bit, but it worked out really well. Got a nice effect there, and it looks a lot better with his facial hair applied. And then just like magic, there's a lot more details on his glasses because I put that nice gray reflection there in the corner. And now I'm adding some bluish grayish highlights to show the definition in his hair. Now here you can see that I did do some things off camera. I'm sorry, I got in a flow and I just had to go ahead and do the stripes. I first did the white stripes because it's really not interesting to watch me just put white on white canvas. But I also did the teal stripes off camera as well, and additionally Peter's beard. Though Peter's beard, you pretty much saw that same technique used in his hair, same idea. So right now you can see I am adding the shading and the highlights to Alex's shirt. I've taken just a really light gray mixed with a tiny bit of blue, and that really is how you can get shadows on a white, by using that tiny bit of blue / gray. And then I'm going to go in and mix a lighter and darker color of the teal that I have there for the shadows and highlights of the teal part of the stripes, the teal stripes. When you're doing fabric like this, or really with any kind of painting, you really want to just pay attention to the shapes that you're making and not try to say, make this look like a wrinkle or make this look like a fold, because if you just paint what you see, and that is the biggest tip that I read, that it really does help, just paint what you see. If you're trying to make it look like a shirt or something like that, it's not really going to come out right. But if you say, I see a weird little triangle shape right here that's this color, and you put it there, and then you kind of take a step back, then magically it looks like what it's supposed to look like. And so you just kind of have to trust the shapes, and they will come through for you. this is going to be the last little bit of the painting. I'm going to finish it here shortly. I just had to go in and add a second coat of that thiosalinine, I forgot how to say it now, thiocyanine blue to Peter's shirt because it wasn't quite dark enough the first time, and I hadn't had a chance to go back in and add a second coat, and that's what I'm doing right now. Just making sure to get close to everything, close to his beard. I'll be going around the button. And I also, I'm going to go in, you'll see, and I had made Alex's cheek a tiny bit too big. So he looked a tiny bit chubbier than he looks in real life. So I'm just going to go and kind of whittle that away with that dark blue. Nice and easy to do there. And here, just like with Alex's shirt, I have to add the highlights and the shadows. And what I usually do with any color shirt like Peter has is take that original color and just add white to it and add black to it. Now, this shirt looked, I didn't really like the baby blue-esque color that I got when I added just straight white to it. So I did add some neutral gray. A lot of times I mix white and black to get gray, but I do have a tube of neutral gray that I used this time. And I just kept adding gray until it wasn't such a sky blue, but was a little more muted grayish blue. But as you can see, my first few strokes that I put on there, I didn't really care for. And then I started wiping the brush off on a paper towel. And I started doing more of a dry brush effect. It looks a lot better. So yeah, see how that just looks a lot smoother and actually like a highlight and not just a stripe on the shirt. But I did have to make some harder lines right there just to map out Peter's collar. And in a second, I am going to go in and actually paint over some of those first strokes that I did with the original blue because I really didn't like how they turned out. But again, that's the good thing with painting. If you mess it up, you can just go in and fix it, paint over it again, and try again. Sure what happened here and why you didn't see me actually paint the shadows in there next to the highlights, but as you can see, they're there now and it really helps the shirt pop. You definitely always have to make sure you have a highlight and a shadow when you're doing any kind of wrinkle or fold in fabric so that it definitely looks more realistic. I had to do here are Alex's teeth and a little shadow on Peter's arm that was right next to Alex's face. Teeth are kind of tricky. You basically just have to take a nice light tan color and go in between the teeth. You don't want to overline every single tooth. You want to more give an indication that a tooth is there. And Alex, as you could just barely see a couple of the teeth down below. So I made little marks where they were down there with that dark brown. And then outlined the further back teeth, the back teeth that you can see with a darker color because obviously they're further back and you can't see them as well. But I didn't spend a lot of time on them. And then, like I said, then I switched over to Peter's shadow there just to give it some more for some more depth. And this, guys, is the final result. It occurred to me later, and after I already packed it up and shipped it to Peter Monn, that I didn't film it in its finished state. But I do have a photo, so I'm just going to talk over you looking at this flat image that I had to flip, so I couldn't even get it all the way in. But you know what? This is my first time, and I've learned a lot during this process, and I hope that my next one turns out better technically. I mean, I still put something together that I'm pretty proud of, and I did a painting that I'm really proud of. So I hope you guys enjoyed the process, and if you did, come back for more. Thanks. Bye.